Fog doesn't stop for rank. Tonight it's sitting over you. 47 years old, 25 years in, standing at the mouth of a court off Goulston Street with a lantern in your hand and a case file that will never close. It's the last week of September, 1888. Before you go in, you take out your watch. You wind it. You set it against the station clock. You've done that every working morning since 1863. Level 1. The Recruit. 1863. You are 22 years old. You were born in a Dorset village of 400 people. Before you're a policeman, you're a specimen. Height first. You need to clear 5'9" in bare feet. Then age. Then reading. Tested on the spot. Then character written references your vicar and your neighbors have to sign their names to. On the day, you stand in a corridor in Whitehall Place with a few dozen other hopeful men. The corridor smells like carbolic soap and wet wool and other men's nerves. When your turn comes, the measuring rod is cold on the top of your skull. The police surgeon has seen 1,000 men exactly like you and turned most of them away. He looks at your teeth. He looks at your legs. He asks what your father does, and he writes the answer down. About 1 man in 5 gets through. Most of them aren't Londoners. Country boys are preferred. Tougher, they think. Less likely to have a brother in the rookeries. Less likely to have an opinion about who deserves arresting. A clerk hands you a printed card. Sworn in. Attested. Given a warrant number. That number is now more permanently yours than your name. That same January, at a different station on the other side of the river, a 19-year-old clockmaker from Blandford Forum in Dorset is signing the same papers. His name is Frederick George Aberline. You won't hear it for 25 years. When you do, it'll be shouted across a police yard in Whitechapel. You don't celebrate. You wind your watch. You set it by the station clock, and you drill. Level 2. The Constable. 1863. You are 22, and you'll wear this uniform for 5 years. The uniform is deliberately unimpressive. A dark tailcoat, a top hat stiffened with cane, which they tell you will take a blow. It doesn't really, and stitched at your collar, the letter of your division and your own number. That's on purpose. So any citizen who wants to complain about you can write it down. Your division is H. Whitechapel. Your section house is off Leman Street. The force is 34 years old, and London still hasn't decided if it wants one. Robert Peel pushed the Metropolitan Police Act through Parliament in 1829. 1,000 blue-coated men on streets that never asked for them. The public named you before you were born into it. Peelers, raw lobsters, blue devils. In May 1833, at a meeting in Coldbath Fields, a constable named Robert Culley was stabbed to death in the street. The coroner's jury came back with a verdict of justifiable homicide. That verdict is 30 years old, and men on your beat still bring it up. It means a jury of Londoners looked at a dead policeman and decided he had it coming. You're wearing the same uniform he died in. Your beat is fixed. You walk it at a set pace, about 2.5 miles an hour, timed so exactly that a sergeant who can't find you at the halfway point knows within a minute that something's wrong. London is cut into lettered divisions. Yours is one small slice of one of them. Dorset Street, Flower and Dean Street, Thrall Street. The court's off Commercial Street. You learn those streets by rhythm before you learn them by name. For your first 15 years, your only alarm is a wooden rattle. You swing it hard enough to be heard over cartwheels and drunk singing. The whistle that carries twice as far doesn't arrive until the 80s. By then, your arm knows the rattle's weight, the way it knows your mother's face. Night duty is 2 months out of 3. 9 at night until 6 the next morning, in whatever weather there is. Your pay is somewhere in the low 20s of shillings a week before they take things out, plus an allowance of coal and candles. Enough to survive on, not enough to relax. And here's what you actually remember, decades later. Not the arrests, the smell. You learn London by its smells before you learn the streets. Coal smoke that leaves grit in your teeth. Horse dung trodden into paste. Hot fat from the night stalls on Whitechapel Road. And under all of it, the Thames at low tide. In the summer of 1866, it's bad enough to make a grown man gag on whopping old stairs. The force would rather you stop a crime by being visible than solve one afterwards. So you walk. 8 hours, same pavement, same corners. This is the rank most men never leave. Discipline handles the ones who slip. Drink accounts for more dismissals than anything else, year after year. And every man on your beat can name someone who went that way. You don't. You wind your watch. You climb instead. Level 3. The Sergeant. 1868. You are 27 years old. Promotion doesn't change your hands. It changes what you do with them. Instead of one beat, you supervise several. And the men walking them drank with you as equals 2 weeks ago. When a constable misses a meeting point, you walk his beat yourself. You tap your stick twice on the curb, the call wrap at the center, and both ends. Then you stand still in the dark and wait for 2 taps back. That's how you know your man is alive and at his post. That's the sound you carry out of this rank. 2 taps on stone, then silence. Then, usually, 2 taps back. Usually. Pay goes up with the stripes. So does responsibility for other men's mistakes. A constable asleep in a doorway at 4 in the morning. A constable who smells of gin at the section house. Your report decides whether he keeps the job that feeds his children. You learn to write it either way, and you learn which way you're expected to write it. The first man you break is 23 and from Norfolk. He has a wife in a room off Cable Street and a second child coming. They find him sitting on a step at 3:30 in the morning with his helmet in his lap. He doesn't lie about it. Somehow, that makes it worse. You write what happened. You use 11 words. The station stove takes the draft you didn't use. You stand there long enough to watch it curl. By the end of this rank, you drink your tea the way the section house makes it. Stewed black on the hob since the shift before. Bitter enough to strip your tongue. 25 years from now, you'll still make it that way. At a commissioner's desk, and nobody will ask why. On the 26th of December, 1868, Sir Richard Mayne dies in office. He'd been commissioner for 39 years. Since before you were born. Men in your station who never saw him talk about it like a season ending. You stop being one of the lads. You start being the reason one of the lads gets sacked. Level 4. The Inspector. 1873. You are 32 years old. A division becomes yours to run. You're not a man on a street anymore. You're the man signing charge sheets. Managing a station house. Answering to a superintendent for everything that happens on your ground. Your world narrows to a desk and widens to a district at the same time. This rank smells like ink and gum and the sealing wax you keep in a tin. It sounds like a steel nib scratching through carbon paper, because every charge sheet has to exist twice. The station house you inherit holds 40 men, 2 cells, a charge room, a stove that smokes, and a ledger that gets balanced every night whether anything happened or not. You're responsible for every prisoner who comes through that door alive, and for explaining in writing any who doesn't leave the same way. You take the rank a year after the worst week the force has ever had. In November 1872, constables and sergeants across several divisions refuse duty. Pay, rest days, pensions, a police strike, in a force that insists such a thing isn't possible. It gets settled. Concessions are made. Then, the men identified as ringleaders are dismissed anyway. That's the lesson, and you write it down somewhere behind your eyes. This place expects total loyalty. It guarantees none. Command means being trusted by the men below you and doubted by the men above you, often in the same afternoon. Level 5. The Detective. 1878. You are 37 years old. Then comes the offer that changes everything. Plain clothes. The detective branch exists because the uniform failed once, in public. In 1842, a coachman named Daniel Good killed a woman in Roehampton and then walked out of a room full of constables while they searched it. The manhunt was handled so badly that the press demanded a permanent body of trained detectives. They got 2 inspectors and 6 sergeants, 8 men, for 2 million people. Nobody expected it to survive a year. By your time, it's small, closed, and famous. Jonathan Witcher of that first generation went to Road Hill House in 1860, named the killer correctly, was publicly destroyed for it, and left the force a broken man. And then, the year before they ask you to join, the branch destroys itself. Here's the scene you can't get out of your head. The Old Bailey. November 1877. You're in the public gallery. The trial has run for weeks. The papers are calling it the turf fraud, or just the trial of the detectives. 2 swindlers have been running a betting fraud out of London, and the men who were supposed to be catching them were being paid to warn them when the arrests were coming. In the dock, Chief Inspector Nathaniel Druskovich, who speaks 4 languages and is the man they send abroad. Chief Inspector William Palmer, Inspector John Meiklejohn, Chief Inspector George Clark, 37 years service, stands with them. He's acquitted. He's finished anyway. He resigns. Druskovich is 35 years old. He has a mustache like yours and a warrant card like yours. When the sentence comes 2 years, hard labor, he doesn't react at all. That's the part that stays with you, not the words. A man in a good coat, standing perfectly still while the words are read. He'll be dead of consumption within 4 years of walking out. 3 months later, in April 1878, the branch is dissolved and rebuilt as the Criminal Investigation Department. It's put under a 30-year-old barrister named Howard Vincent, who studied the French detective system and reports straight to the Home Secretary. Under him is Adolphus Williamson. Dolly, the last honest fixture of the old branch. They ask you to join. You hand in the helmet, the visible authority, the instant respect a uniform buys you on a dark street. You get a civilian overcoat that comes out of a storeroom smelling of camphor. And a warrant card you're required to produce the second any citizen challenges you. That rule was written specifically because Londoners are afraid plainclothes police are government spies. What you actually notice, that whole first week, is your head. Bare. Light. 22 pounds of authority lifted off your skull. Every doorway you pass now looks at you like a man instead of a lamp. Level 6. The First Class Inspector. 1883. You are 42 years old. The transfer to headquarters comes the way real promotions do. Quietly, on a specific date, in a file. Central office, Great Scotland Yard. A cramped block of buildings behind Whitehall Place, with too few rooms and too many men. It smells like coal gas and paraffin and damp paper and a stove that's never quite out. It sounds like the telegraph. Click, pause, click. All day. London's crimes arriving from divisions you'll never set foot in. First Class Inspector marks you as one of a small number of detectives trusted with cases that cross division lines. You're not walking one man's ground anymore. You get loaned wherever the crime is worse that season. a garroting panic in Southwark, a fraud in the city, a body in the river at Rotherhithe. Sometimes they send you back to H Division, the same streets you walked at 22. You arrive as an outsider with authority instead of a local with a beat. The constable who walks you to the scene was 11 years old when you left. In 1886, a demonstration in Trafalgar Square turns into a riot that smashes club windows all the way down Pall Mall. Commissioner Henderson resigns within days. His replacement is a soldier, Major General Sir Charles Warren, fresh from Africa, a man who thinks in columns and formations. Within 2 years, he'll resign and disgrace himself. Colleagues who used to outrank you start deferring to you. It should feel like a rival. It feels like being watched by everyone at once. Level 7. The Chief Inspector. 1888. You are 47 years old. Then comes the case no rank prepares you for. And this time, there's nobody above you to hand it to. Late summer, 1888. Whitechapel. A murder in Bucks Row on the 31st of August. Another in a backyard on Hanbury Street on the 8th of September. Then a night at the end of the month with 2. One of those is in Mitre Square, which is City of London police ground. So even the investigation gets cut in half by a jurisdiction line drawn in the 1600s. In September, Warren puts Chief Inspector Donald Swanson in overall charge at Central Office. Every report, every telegram, every scrap of paper touching this case passes through one pair of hands. And in H Division, Inspector Frederick Aberlin, the clockmaker's boy from Dorset, promoted first class only that February, is sent back to Whitechapel. Because he policed it for 14 years. You go with him. Same reason. Command has decided your old knowledge of the district matters more than your new rank at headquarters. Here's the scene. Goulston Street, the 30th of September, 1888, about 5 minutes to 3 in the morning. A constable finds a piece of bloodied apron in the entry to a block of model dwellings. Physical evidence, the first real thread anybody has had. And on the wall above it, in chalk, a line of writing. Photographers are sent for. Daylight is 3 hours away. Superintendent Arnold arrives with a sponge and a wet cloth. Then Warren arrives, the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, standing in a doorway in Whitechapel before dawn. He gives the order himself. Wash it off, before the market opens, before the crowd comes, before the East End goes up. You stand 3 feet away and watch the only message anybody in this case has ever left behind dissolve into gray water on a wet stone step. The entry smells like lime wash and river damp, and the copper smell you've never got used to. Somebody says the word riot. Somebody says the word evidence. Nobody says either one loudly enough. Warren resigns on the 8th of November. The next morning, a woman is found in a room off Dorset Street, a street you walked on your first beat. Then it stops. That's somehow worse. You interview witnesses who saw nothing usable. You chase leads that dissolve. Warren tries bloodhounds in Hyde Park in October, and the dogs are a national joke inside a week. A young H Division detective named Walter Dew, who will one day arrest Dr. Crippen by wireless telegraph and be famous for it, spends the rest of his life saying he never had the faintest idea who it was. You close no case. This is the cost the ladder doesn't advertise. The higher you climb, the more public your failures get. This one follows your name for the rest of your career, promotion or not. Level 8. The Chief Constable. 1890. You are 49 years old. In this branch, surviving is its own promotion. Adolphus Williamson dies in December 1889, a month short of 39 years' service. The department's living memory goes with him, and you take the top uniformed post inside the CID, the man every detective in London answers to. You don't catch criminals anymore. You read about other men catching them, or failing to. This rank smells like paper and sealing wax and boot polish. It sounds like a door closing in a corridor, because at this level, the important part of any conversation happens after the door shuts. You spend your days on the conduct of your own men, because you inherited the reforms built out of 1877, and you know exactly what the alternative looks like. Twice a month, a name comes across your desk for transfer into the department. You read the divisional report, the file, the handwriting, and you try to find the thing that was in Druskovich's file too, and that nobody caught in 1877. You never find it. You approve the transfer anyway, because London doesn't stop needing detectives while you're being careful. You're not managing crime. You're managing an institution's reputation, one man's conduct at a time. You still wind the watch. You still say nothing. Level 9, the Assistant Commissioner. 1896. You are 55 years old. The next rung takes you out of the detective's world completely and into rooms in Whitehall. The job exists to put a senior official with direct access to the Home Secretary between the CID and the politicians who fund it and question it. You stop supervising cases and start defending them. In letters, in committee, in the ear of men who have never walked a beat in their lives. This rank smells like beeswax polish and cigar smoke and the leather of a carriage you didn't pay for. The newspapers that hunted you in 1888 now court you as a source. You give them nothing. They print something anyway. Twice a year you sit in front of a parliamentary committee. Men who have never stood in a doorway at 2 a.m. ask you why the largest city on earth can't produce a conviction rate that satisfies them. You explain the difference between what a detective knows and what a jury can be shown. They write it down. Nothing changes. And only once a junior clerk brings you a bundle from the registry. The paper on top is a report in your own handwriting from September 1888. And you realize you never aged out of that autumn at all. You just got promoted further away from it. On paper, this is one of the most powerful jobs in British policing. In practice, you get blamed for decisions your detectives made without asking you, and praised for successes you had nothing to do with. You have real power now. You've never had less control. Level 10, the Commissioner. 1903. You are 62 years old. The climb ends at a desk that existed before you were born. Rowan and Maine, Henderson, Warren, Monroe, Bradford. Their names are the spine of this institution, and now yours goes under the last of them. You command every rank you ever held. Recruit, constable, sergeant, inspector, detective, chief inspector, chief constable, assistant commissioner. All of it below you. All of it your fault if it fails. Headquarters is moved. New Scotland Yard stands on the Victoria Embankment now. Granite and brick. And here's the detail you never repeat at dinner. While it was still going up, in October 1888, in the middle of everything, a workman found a parcel in one of the cellar vaults. It was a woman's torso. She was never identified. That case was never solved either. You run the building it was found in. This rank smells like new paint and hot dust off the radiators. And the river again. The same Thames you smelled at 22 on Wapping Old Stairs. Except now it reaches you through plate glass, in an office with a fire in it. You have the title. Your photograph is in the illustrated papers. Men who were children when Warren resigned salute you in corridors. You don't have the one thing you wanted. The Whitechapel file is somewhere in the building you now run. Bound. Indexed. Unsolved. Still yours in every way except the one that would let you put it down. You retire the way every commissioner does. Quietly. On a fixed date. replaced by another man who inherits the same desk, the same corridor, the same open page in the record. The ladder doesn't end with you. It didn't begin with you either. And on a Tuesday morning, in a corridor in Westminster, a farm boy from somewhere green is standing with his boots off and his back against a measuring rod. A police surgeon who has seen 1,000 men just like him is looking at his teeth. He doesn't know about 1877. He's never heard of Goulston Street. On his first morning, they'll tell him to take out his watch, wind it, and set it against the station clock. He'll do it every working day for 40 years. 10 ranks, 40 years. One file that never closed. The dread begins again.